reason I share this is that I know that many people are drawn to the work that Rajni and I do in sharing this practice when there is a difficulty in the life, and the expectation can be that the meditation is going to solve the problem. The meditation is going to get to the heart of the issue. And so, yes, we have to dangle some nice marketing hype to say that the meditation will help. It will help. The caveat is eventually, and if you're prepared to go as deep as you need to see what caused the suffering in one's life. Hey, it's David. Welcome back to the channel. Kailash Ashram is a place where we share traditional meditation and yoga, and I'm a veteran. I was a sniper and I've turned into a meditator and a yogin. On this channel, we love to share an inspiring, soulful message to help you get your bum on the meditation cushion a little bit more often. Tonight's sharing comes from our weekly discourse where we share directly to our community. If you're interested in becoming a part of our community and want to learn the meditation that we'll be sharing at the end of this practice, please check out the description below. There's some links to get you started. Whilst you're at it, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if this is your sort of stuff. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So may our soul be present, the one of it. May it be that thing that creates, sustains and dissolves us. To that soul we bow. Great to see you, Julie, Jackie, Maxine, Craig and Tracy, Rosetta, and lovely wife Rajni over there too. It's been a long time, so we do appreciate everybody's patience and for all of you for coming back in and reconnecting with the ashram. Tonight, g'day Bev and Jackie, who's also joining. Tonight we're going to share just a little bit, or I'm going to share a little bit of an update of where we are and also some reflections on stuff that's been going on. And then we're going to sit for our lovely collective meditation. So as many of you will know, we sort of really kind of took the foot off the accelerator around mid last year due to some burnout that was happening in my own realm. Some strange, quite severe symptoms were beginning to emerge, which it's unfortunate to go through that, especially, you proceed upon this path with the meditation and the yoga and self-cultivation and working towards all of these lofty goals of enlightenment and whatnot. And then your stuff comes up. And for me, really, to take the foot off the accelerator since really August last year, we've run one retreat in November, but haven't been doing any real kind of deep heavy lifting with the ashram. It's given a chance for me to recalibrate and make sure that I'm kind of taking care of myself in some ways that I hadn't. I sort of, being a veteran, the first thing that they do is go and give you a bunch of not so helpful labels about what's going on. So I'm not sure if anyone in the room has also got some of those labels, PTSD and anxiety and depression, and it's pretty standard to meet the criteria. I'd say that most people I know on a bad day, if they went to a psychiatrist, would wind up with a bunch of conditions and a box full of medicine. Which may or may not work. For some, it's a game changer. Certainly for me, being more on this path, I made the choice to not really proceed down heavy medication to deal with difficult symptoms. So it was really a case of me being pushed to practice what we preach, and preach is to tell or to say and speak. I know it gets a bit of a kind of bad rap in modern times that if you're a bit preachy, you kind of maybe telling others how to live. We're in this position where we're sharing practices and trying to help you understand how they've been integrated into our lives. And to be honest, with what has arisen in the process. And I hope that you all feel that over the years that we've known many of you, that we've never claimed to be things that we're not. We share the highs and the lows. Anyone who's been on the soul retreat certainly knows that Rajni and I have not been spared even since starting this practice. I mean, for those looking for a quick fix, Rajni was in a toxic relationship for 7 years whilst she was meditating before things shifted, and she was able to let go of something that wasn't serving her. So, meditation, yoga, we're talking decades of practice to budge some of those unhelpful patterns or the imprints that we've picked up by life. For me, quick fix, boom, out of the army within 3 weeks. And I thought, great, I'll just leave that world behind, and proceeded upon this path and did exactly what I did in the army realm, but in the spiritual space, and just threw myself at it with a manic kind of energy. And that worked for 7 years. It was really, really good. But then what began to surface were those things that I'd been through in the past that maybe hadn't been addressed. Now, some of them, if you're a Western-minded person into the more psychological approach, the Western psychological model of trauma is essentially that we experience something, and then as a process of our inability to accept or be at peace with what has happened, we can then develop, mental disorders around those traumatic experiences that we've been through. So I'm not dismissing that as an approach. It's one model. But the yogic path, we see that the mind isn't some separate independent entity from the body. Those been on the soul retreat will recall that the mind is actually that thing that stitches together the sensory apparatus. Those are the organs of perception and the organs of action, and gives you the ability to be in the body and to have likes and dislikes about what those experiences are in the body. And then that functioning of the mind-body system is witnessed by the soul. Okay, so all of this experience, be it the phone in front of you, be it the sound of my voice, your vision of being able to see the screen, the touch of your body when you're doing a practice, all of this is perceived by that baseline of your soul, which is of the nature of consciousness. It does nothing else. The mind and body are extremely busy. The soul is that place of pure awareness. So, by relegating ourselves or shifting, as we help many people do, the sense of I, that individuated sense of ego, from body and mind, I am my body, I am my thoughts, to I am a holy soul, I'm a pure soul, we begin to witness the body. And that sense of separation can make us feel relief. But then the sense of I, as it's prone to do, comes back in and fuses with the body. That extrication began happening for me a good few years ago. And slowly what has happened is, over the last year, certain things that I've been through in the army were presented to me, to the soul. And I'd be kidding you if I said that I was able to maintain my soul-based awareness as those difficulties were being presented to me. So what do I mean by this? Well, part of my job was using large caliber rifles that go bang in a very big, loud way, like a ridiculously loud way, and even an unsafely sort of level of unsafe level of blast comes out of some of the bigger guns I was using, and the rocket launchers and things. And so what this blast wave had done, unbeknownst to me, was create scarring in the brain matter, which can then create some issues down the track. This is a problem that is very poorly understood. Most of it has to be understood through the process of autopsy. So one needs to have passed in order, or left the body in order to confirm a lot of these diagnoses. So It's a little bit of an epidemic sweeping across certain sections of the veteran community that some years after service, neurological conditions are beginning to emerge. And they often get misdiagnosed as psychological impairments, whereas the basis for them is actually trauma to the brain tissue. So that has been a very difficult thing to be presented to my awareness. And for many months of the last 12 months or the last 9 months, I found myself, after feeling at peace with me being a soul and teaching and guiding other people to be at peace with them being a soul, I found myself really feeling a lot of the suffering of the body that was possibly overlooked in my haste to jump onto the path of the meditation and the yoga. So my karma caught up with me and it's pushed me to within an inch of my life. It's not been an easy year. I am bolstered by the fact that, they say misery loves company, and I'm not happy that my own guru in the Hatha Yoga tradition has suffered a surfacing of, bodily difficulties, but to see him, an absolute master, the epitome of the Hatha Yoga pursuit, to endure hardships on his health, in his 70s, after a life dedicated to the practice, it kind of teaches me that my own suffering is my karma. His suffering was his karma, and your suffering will be your karma. Nothing that we do in this life comes without the consequence of having to endure it coming back to us in its lawful return. And that can be through disease, cancer, terminal illness, disfigurement, mental problems, challenging life circumstances. But the difference between experiencing those challenges when we're on the path of the spiritual path and using any of the broader yogic practices, the difference between that and perhaps our ignorant way of living, where we're encountering difficulties in life, but we're not overtly yet upon that spiritual path. Well, once we're on the spiritual path, we've got some practices. We can do something about it. And that's what I got pushed to do this year, to double down onto the practices. Listening to one's soul, making time for the quiet space, even if the ego is kicking up a fuss, as it was for me, even if some days I didn't even want to be here again. I got pulled into a real pit of despair, and I'm still prone in the kind of strikes me from out of nowhere. It's as if there's some short circuits, and then boom, like a deep depression will surface. But how do I respond to that? How do I respond to a meltdown or to an outburst? Is it with justification of that, or am I learning in the aftermath of that difficulty to use the balm of the practices to soothe me and to give a broader sense of comfort? Certainly miracles are possible. I do believe in that, if that is one's karma. But, am I begging God for a miraculous cure to whatever might be ailing me, or am I fixated upon the mission as a soul? And the mission of a soul is to be liberated from suffering. That's not to have an absence of suffering in one's life. It's to be free from the attachment to the suffering. There's a big difference. All bodies will suffer. All minds will suffer. It's the inherent nature of life, as the Buddha pointed out, to suffer. The soul stuff of this meditation that connects us to the soul is about recognizing that the suffering is there, it will be here today, and it's going to be there tomorrow. But what is our relationship to it? Is it something that we desperately want to avoid, or is it something that over time we can learn to be soft with, to be gentle with? And my experience has been the more gentle I treat myself, the less suffering surfaces. And the more that I jump in and try to impose or control upon those difficulties, the more it perturbs my own mind stream, and things get worse. So, in my highest moments, I like to look at maybe my difficulties over the last 6 months as coming to me because I was now finally ready to tackle them. Had these things surfaced 7 years ago, I might have pushed me over the edge. I might have been one of the untold number of veterans that have taken their own lives. And certainly, the statistics in America are absolutely horrendous. We're talking about 30 people per day dying from suicide in the veteran population, which is just absolutely staggering. Australia lost 41 troops in the entire sort of 20 years we were in Afghanistan, and you think in America they're losing almost that per day by people who are ill at ease with themselves and don't want to be in the body and in the mind anymore. So we go, well, there's something happening here, and the ancient remedies are the meditation and the yoga, or any broader spiritual practice that connects us to something greater than ourselves. And when we're wholeheartedly engaged and proceeding upon that path, we give ourselves the best chance of ironing out the highs and also the lows. This is why it's referred to as the middle path. It's not the extreme joys of bliss, of orgiastic kind of ecstasy, to be followed up by the pits of suicide or deep pain in the body. It's something that is otherworldly and to be honest, can feel underwhelming to the ego. A simple recognition of the transcendent in a moment of despair, for instance, for me, has cut through more than anything else that I've possibly done. What brought about those connections to the transcendent in a very difficult state? It was a simple reminder from my wife that your mind. She said to me, I was caught for 2 days. I was in a real funk, a right funk, not in a bad way, not in a good way rather. And Rajni, just bless her cotton socks, said to me, your mind is taking for you for a spin. How about the soul? And there I was in a lot of misery, and I briefly heard something, and it wasn't voice, it wasn't sound, it was emptiness. Nothing, no big vision, no God, no kind of divine kind of ecstasy before my eyes, no psychedelic vision. Just a simple shift of awareness, the chitta getting directed towards the emptiness and the absurdity of the proposition of life, that we're kind of floating in space, that we don't know where we've come from, yet there's nothing more real than us being here. Feels like we've always kind of been here. Just connecting to the mystery for a moment brought a smile to my face and an easing of my situation. I think wow, this grace is eternally present. What changed in that moment is that, Rajni told me that there was a little key, and if I just budged the louver or the door or the shutter of my house, a little ray of light could come in. And, if you're sitting there in the pitch darkness, only a small amount of light is needed to really change your reality. And boy, did it. And so I've had these moments of faith building as well in my difficulty. It's not to grandstand and say that I'm somehow a master at this. The reason I share this is that I know that many people are drawn to the work that Rajni and I do in sharing this practice when there is a difficulty in the life, and the expectation can be that the meditation is going to solve the problem. The meditation is going to get to the heart of the issue. And so, yes, we have to dangle some nice marketing hype to say that the meditation will help. It will help. The caveat is, eventually, and if you're prepared to go as deep as you need to see what caused the suffering in one's life. It's a place of radical self-ownership, and it can be brutal. It's not for the faint of heart. This is why there's a dozen people here and not a couple of hundred, because a lot of people will touch and go with a practice and go, you know what, I'm not going to sit through whatever comes up for 30 minutes, or I'm not going to, is this it? There's no method. There's just a process of surrender. It can't be that easy. Well, not just according to us, but many traditions, this submission to something beyond ourselves is the highest practice that there is. And not a lot of people really want to acknowledge that, or what can happen, as I alluded to, is that the difficulties get exacerbated. We start saying, I want to be free from my suffering, and then the suffering finds a few allies and comes and says, okay, let's have a little bit of a party. How much do you really want to be free? Are you going to join us, or are you going to keep on this path? So the best way to actually, or one of the secret sort of tricks that Swamiji talks about to overcome that, those resistances or the difficulties that surface upon the path, is through collectivity, through gathering with others. And interestingly, that's something that Rajni and I have not done a lot of this past year in the way that we have been. I mean, we get as much, and I would say more, from sharing and being present with everyone here and those that tune in after or touch and go from time to time. We derive a huge amount by way of our own consciousness sitting with the soul. This is because we as humans are social creatures. We need the reflection of others. We go a little bit mad if most of us don't get that human contact. So just segueing into a little bit of some of the experience of last year, part of what Rajni and I did to help heal the body and the mind was to go and spend some time at an Ayurvedic ashram in India, traditional ashram, where they do a lot of different treatments. There's a whole kind of world in the sorts of treatments they do, but it was a very powerful sort of experience for us. And so we were in India and we thought, two young kids under the age of 3, like we've just been to this blissed out kind of Ayurvedic ashram, why not go traveling around India? Not the right way to do it, And for those that we shared a little bit last year about that, we kind of went on a bit of a tour around India, and India wiped the floor with us. We were super open from the Ayurvedic retreat. Traveling in India with kids is hard work, or traveling in India is hard work. With kids, it's even more so. And we just got sick, and a big purge came. And so one of the destinations that we had on that retreat that trip through India was to go to one of Swamiji's ashrams in the north of India, in Mahudi, expecting that we were going to get a meeting with his son, and we arrived and the son wasn't even in the same state, so we'd got kind of a little bit stood up and we thought, okay, we've come all this way, no meeting, what are we going to do? At Swamiji's ashram, we'll meditate, that's what you do there. So Rajni went and sat for a meditation, and deep in the silence she heard a message come through that wasn't in her voice, it was from Swamiji, and it was David should come back to India for the deep meditation practicum, a 45-day retreat. So that's where I was over summer. I left in January. I thought I couldn't think of anything worse. The idea of going to India for 45 days and I'm joking. I love that place and I love the ashram, but I know it's deep work. That big 45-day stretch that Swamiji does is a very subtle process, but it can be at the same time very strong, as in big changes. And so we booked in, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going over by myself. What am I going to do? And there was different options for the accommodation, and one of them was shunya, isolation. And I was like, oh, sign me up. This sounds perfect. I get to be away from everybody for 45 days. And I just thought it was like, for my own private room. In the week prior to the retreat starting, I realized that it was isolation, as in you're staying inside your 5 by 10 meter tent for 45 days. You're not seeing anybody. You're not going to be speaking to anybody. There's not going to be any distractions. Your phone will, you know. So I was like, okay, I got my work cut out for me. This is going to bring up a lot of stuff. And then the day before, I thought to Rajni, I'll stay in contact with Rajni, that'll be fine. We'll just send each other some texts or whatever. And the day before that retreat commenced, when the lockdown launched, and this is something Swamiji does, every year he goes into isolation for 45 days. He sent a message out saying, well, I'll be turning off my phone and I won't be speaking to anyone. What about you? And I thought, oh, he's thrown it down here. There's no way I can leave my phone on right now. I guess I've got to go into hard mode. And so I thought, great, 45 days, detox from the internet, social media, needing to speak to people, detox from food, I'll eat whatever they bring to me. First 3 days, I just brought a couple of bits of fruit. So that was, a welcome to Anushtan sort of experience. But as the experience started taking hold, I found deep catharsis in writing, and so I would meditate and practice and write, and that became my world. This little tent, and I grew quite fond of it. There was a large amount of challenge, Indian style challenge in it, as in 6 o'clock the first evening, feeling sleepy, I'll sit down for a meditation, and then the wedding party music from the neighbouring, impromptu festival that lasted, I think, for 12 days in the end started. And every night we got it until about 2 o'clock in the morning, just thumping music. So there I am thinking, I'm in quiet Wartalk, I can barely hear anything. I get up early out here to beat the birds to meditate. Like I like the dead still quiet out here. Yet over there, with this expectation for peace, for calm, for being at an ashram, I got to meditate through loud Indian wedding music, and then had to sleep through it somehow, which, first couple of nights I was, my stuff came up and I was a bit angry and frustrated, and then by the 4th night I was so tired from not having slept properly that I just started sleeping through it somehow. So, India pushed me, and, I was there ticking my days off the calendar and enjoying the sadhana and enjoying the distraction-free environment. And 3 weeks in or thereabouts, they passed me a note under the door saying that you need to check your email. Your wife has got something important to tell you. And the first thing that came into my head was, who's died? And then I realised I had to let that go and not get my imagination too worked up. And that was when I went to the computer to find out that the fires had got within 1 kilometre of our house and the ashram itself. And there I was sitting there, I'm a volunteer in the local CFA brigade, and part of me thought I'm missing out on all of the action. That was my army warry side. The other part is, oh my God, we nearly lost our house, and oh my God, the Grampians is burning. What the hell is going on? And so I was at one of those fork in the road moments of, do I stay and try to meditate for the next 3 weeks and finish this thing out, or the next month really, or do I come back home and be with my family? And I chose to come back to be with the family and to protect the ashram and to volunteer in the community if things were getting bad. And so really, this occurred in the week, by the way, where Swamiji was clearing the navel chakra. And those who are aware of the elements will remember that at the navel chakra we have what element? It's the element of fire. So literally we had fires on the doorstep of the ashram. I could see the teaching at the time, and I came back in a peaceful place. a little bit frustrated that I couldn't proceed and go through that retreat in India, but also extremely thankful that the sadhana that God, that Guru had pushed me to do was the sadhana called life. And that's the hardest sadhana there is. Meditation can be a bit of an escape. Locking yourself in a cave or in a tent for weeks or months on end, there's nothing to trigger you. I triggered myself because I went through this process of writing and thinking about lots of different experiences. But more or less, there's no triggers in nature. You live in harmony with things, without the distraction of the mind. One evening I looked at an ant for 30 minutes. I had a great experience. I literally watched the same ant for 30 minutes and we just hung out. There was nothing to do. Back home, with the competing demands of kids, of partner, of animals, of you name it, business, ashram, those distractions really shake up the inner self. And if you can find peace in that shaken up environment, it's actually worth something more than running away. Now, remember, I was only over there because Rajni had kind of given me my marching orders, but I also, did really want to enjoy that experience and to learn something about myself. I've come back from that experience wanting to pass that on forward to people who might be interested in longer term retreats at the ashram, isolated potentially, maybe not for some, but to give that space for others to have a week, 2 weeks, 45 days of rest away from the distraction of the world. Not to suggest that this is the way to salvation, but that it can be a practice, that it can be a stepping stone to touching something deeper within. Now, I certainly did and will for the rest of my days have some experiences there. I had some experiences that will be with me for the rest of my days, just by virtue of being free from the distraction. And so we really look forward to kind of offering that. If there are people who, the time of year that will do that will be sort of start of next year. So it's not something that you need to impulsively go, yep, sign me up for 45 days straight away. But we will, during that very auspicious period where Swamiji is in isolation, make available that opportunity because I can see it bringing people a huge amount. The knowledge and the practices that we share on the soul retreat, look, the practice is very basic, but doing it 4 or 5 times a day isn't it's not easy to show up and continue sitting, but it gets easier, especially after a few days of distraction or a distractionless environment. Setting your own rhythm with that sadhana and beginning to learn to be at ease more quickly it's a powerful skill that has definitely kept me in a good way well after that experience. So there's the kind of crazy experiences you get whilst you're there, but then there's the inner capability to quiet the mind and to surrender a little bit without effort. For some of you, it might be your seats for meditation might be 28 minutes of fighting the monkey upstairs and then you drop into 2 minutes. What one would hope is that after one of these experiences, that after 5 minutes, you might be dropping into that place and sitting there with a lot of ease. So, this is just one of the things that came to the surface out of the last year. I'm still kind of digesting it. In terms of coming back out and what we're going to be doing over the coming months and years. I mean, we've got 2 periods of retreats this year where we're doing a sort of a retreat every month for 3 months, and then we're having a bit of a break. So and then again, we'll be doing a 3-month window where there's retreats. This next little chapter, we've got the 4 Yogas retreat, which is a new retreat that's coming. This is in April over Easter. And then we're doing a couple of soul retreats as well. So they're a great opportunity to, we've got some people coming back, past soul retreat students returning. So if you want a second round at that, you certainly can. But also the 4 yogas is going to, bring some new teachings to people who are ready for that. And then in the back half of the year, we're excited to launch some other retreats as well. One of them is a Hatha Yoga retreat. So that'll be more physical-based practices. And that'll be pretty much all we do on that retreat. So just a few sessions per day and lots of time to be at ease. And another retreat to go a little bit more deeper with some of the experiences in nature. So, we're really looking forward to diversifying our offerings out here and giving you all a great opportunity to come back, either as a volunteer on the soul retreat, certainly would love to welcome you back, or also to go and progress your own learnings, understanding that when it comes to the Hatha Yoga, it's a very long, arduous path, but this Himalayan meditation that we practice, it's the same thing as what you got on day one. And speaking of which, that's what we're going to jump into. So I deeply appreciate your presence and your attention here. We're going to get set up in a moment for the Himalayan meditation, the Samarpan Dhyan. So we like a quiet goodbye for those that are new here. So we will just, I'll grab the bell and ding the bowl at the time. And you can all have a lovely evening after that. So we'll say thank you very much, Julie, Robin, Bev, Nev, Jane, Olivia, Jackie, Maxine, Craig, Trace, Rosetta, and of course Rajni. Beautiful. I said Jai Atmeshwar, have a lovely evening and enjoy your meditation. Thank you for joining in for tonight's session. We deeply value your attention and we trust that the session brought you something. If these teachings have been useful for you, please check out our playlist here or here to continue your learning. Jai Atmeshwar, that means victory to the soul, your divine soul. We will see you next week.